Hi guys, it's Luna and I have finally made the Deltarune theory I promised. Okay, Deltarune is an anagram of Undertale. Maybe its story is the opposite. There are countless theories out there and here are some of mine, but first let's check on the characters. First is Kris, our protagonist. Kris. A blank page to use, but also holds a twisted sense of humor when the soul is not within them. They are absolutely neutral to everyone and everything before the soul used them as its vessel. Their name can also refer to something. It could be a combination of Kara and Frisk from Undertale. They are as blank as Frisk, while also looking and acting like Kara. It could also be possible this is how Kara would have acted if they never died. Since in Undertale we know that Kara had a twisted sense of humor, but they also acted on their own, a bit creepy when we witness Azrael's videos of talking about them. We still don't know why Kris was raised by monsters. They could be adopted, or they could be someone who ran away. Since the monsters have little to no knowledge about how to take care of humans, there might not be any humans within their reach, which begs the question, where did Kris come from? It could be possible Kris was a sacrifice, as we all know that monsters have power or magic, but we still don't know why Kris is there. Maybe the humans thought that by sacrificing a human child, maybe the monsters will grant them favor, with Kris being the last sacrifice. Or it could possibly be that something else happened while Kris was there. Next we have Susie, our companion, or one of our companions in this game. They are a bully, you already know that, but they are doing these acts out of a form of coping mechanism for their life. Susie has nothing to eat, usually looking for anything to eat at this point. Even in chapter 2, we hear that she finds this alleyway with a saucer of milk that refills itself by magic. Unbeknownst to her, it was Alphys, their teacher, refilling it, thinking that there's a cat. She's basically a bit jealous of Kris for having a loving mother, and takes out her frustrations on everyone except Noelle, who she has feelings for, because Noelle was nice to her. Let's talk. Next is Noelle. She's kind, she's smart, but not very bold or confident. She fears the player, us, if they manipulate her to kill Birdie in scene wearing her watch. Her watch has a significance to it, but she keeps it hidden for now and prefers to always have it. Next we have Birdie, arrogant, but also does this because of their insecurities, basically causing or making Noelle always part of him. Next we have Undyne. She doesn't know Alphys, but still is the authority figure. Next is Asgore, still in a bad situation, loves his family, but he isn't connected to them anymore because of the divorce. They keep giving away flowers, which causes him to be poor and sadly even more poor because of that. He's a bit more, how should I say it? Pathetic compared to the first game. Next is Dark World. We have Lancer, he's neutral good, King, chaotic, Queen, misguided but chaotic good, and Jevil, chaotic but knows the truth. Here are also the different runs I've managed to analyze. First is neutral, nothing special. Kris just doesn't influence anyone in the game other than the main story. This also means they avoid any serious decisions like trying to influence the other characters. We just follow the basic rules, such as going home instead of talking to everyone. Next, we have pacifist. You are nice to everyone, don't force your personality on anyone, you don't answer others as if you know them for the past game. Nor do you influence Kris to act as if they were someone else. Like, for example, you help Noelle get closer to Susie. But since we're doing pacifist and try to get good as possible, we influence Kris to do acts of kindness. Then we have the opposite, genocide. You kill anyone and anything or everything that stands in your way. You force Noelle to be with you against her will. You turn an innocent maiden, Noelle, to become stronger physically, but not emotionally. You created another puppet for the soul to manipulate. When we do the Snowgrave route, Noelle slowly becomes influenced by the soul, acting because of their commands, even though she doesn't want to. Even casting a spell she does not know, which is surprising since how was she able to use it anyway? Maybe this is like during the fight with King in the first game, that the characters gain new power by the soul shining on them. But in this case, when the soul shines on Noelle, it brings forth a form of pain inside her, causing the cast Snowgrave. Next is the route I call regret, which is we don't commit to either genocide or pacifist, but also not neutral. I made Noelle stronger by allowing her to learn Snowgrave, but I didn't use that on Birdly, causing the story to return to neutral. But now Noelle has access to a very powerful spell, which we might be able to use in the next chapter or chapters onward. It's just handy to have if ever we need something extremely powerful. Next is my analysis on the world. Some of the characters have passed away due to age or others. The human appears to be in high school, which the other monster youths we didn't see in the other game do. There's this weird thing about not having a green crayon. Maybe it means something. Why green? The mirror said it's only you, but on the next chapter it says it's what they call you, which is odd. There is no red soul to be referenced in the game. Unlike in Undertale, we already know the red soul is determination, but when we go to Asgore's flower shop, we don't find any reference about it anywhere, oddly. It's possible that in this world, determination doesn't actually exist. Asgore is still in a bad situation. It doesn't really change much, actually. The roaring. This was a surprise as it happens if another dark fountain, or when there's more darkness than light. This could possibly be referring to a conflict of interest. Kris creates the worlds we go on adventures with. If another person creates a new world, their worlds might not get along with each other. It's like two people not agreeing on something since they're not balanced. We also notice that Ralsei is rarely acknowledged by Birdly or Noelle. They can also go wherever Kris is, which is odd since Dark World residents should have a light form, such as when Lancer comes with us, he turns into cards. But we never see anything that could possibly represent Ralsei. Although we did get a flavor text about Toriel saying Kris used to have red horns, or a headband with red horns, but they couldn't find it. Which may be Ralsei in a sense, since they seem fairly childlike in terms of personality and behavior, along with having red horns, which is a bit odd. Asgore, I also found out that Asgore was taken off the police force when talking into the police with Undyne and the police. He was also given free pickles by Sans when his store was open now. He tries to get back with Toriel, his ex-wife, but we don't know the reason why they broke up. The human and Azrael never died, just like in unlike in Undertale, which was the cause of their divorce. But here we don't really know what caused them to break up. Maybe because Asgore was a bad father, as we heard that during talking to the guy in the church, that Azrael had a birthday with a Yoshi theme to it. Also, it was referenced by their mother that Asgore cooked all the eggs, which made Azrael cry a lot. And a lot. I also have a theory that Asgore could possibly be the one that killed December, or Des, Noel's sister. As Noel said something odd when she killed Birdly, or froze him. There was too much snow. Possibly Asgore misfired, playing with magic, and accidentally killed her without knowing it. But this is an unlikely theory, as they're still friends with Rudy, Noel's and December's father. We don't really know what happened to December, but it strongly implies that she's dead or they can't find her anymore. There's also a weird theory that Noel killed December, which is why she feels so heartbroken when talking about her, or remembering her. Especially when she said in the snow grave route, what happened, there was too much snow. Maybe she lost control, and maybe that's why we have access to the snow grave route, or spell. A spell that she kept hidden from everyone, as she didn't know it was that powerful. It possessed her, caused her to do unspeakable acts, maybe shatter her own sister. Which is why every time she's December's reference, even during the spelling bee, she just froze, unable to do it. Bratty likes to be in an alleyway, which is weird. Kris oddly doesn't like her when we try to talk to her. She also forced Azrael to kiss her, causing his family to go to church for every day. Her family is always hiding, scratching for some reason. She's very questionable, both in her actions and choices. Kris was someone who had no determination until the soul gave them one. Now they're trying to challenge the soul to leave them alone. We all know that Kris can survive without the soul, but they keep it as a form of twisted game as the soul keeps them entertained. We all know that Kris's mischievous side is not welcomed by majority. When Noelle was scared of humans under her bed, Kris went under the bed and scared her, as well as sometimes acting like they were bleeding when they put ketchup on themselves. Here are the few theories I have, or some of them at least. First, the soul must go. Instead of the monsters being trapped underground, the monsters need to banish the soul to a place where it can never control anyone ever again. In this world, no one knows what the soul can do. Both monsters and humans possess determination to some degree. Unlike in Undertale, where our choices matter, Deltarune makes almost none of our choices matter. We can do pacifist or genocide, but it doesn't change how the story ends for each chapter. It just influences how strong the characters are. The soul itself is evil or good depending on what we do, since it's our soul, not Kris's. But based on the choices we are given, it causes Kris to do acts that generally we or others do not like or are forced to do, such as make Noelle cast a spell she does not know, the snow grave route, as well as respond to Sans saying nice to see you again, which is weird since it's the first time they've ever met. The soul is the one that needs to disappear, not Kris, not the monsters, not the enemies we encounter. Also, Azrael is said to come back from college, meaning that there are other monster towns or even cities somewhere in the world with humans and monsters living peacefully together. It's possibly that the war never happened, and monsters and humans coexist, with monsters as a mutual benefit with their magic. During the end of each chapter, Kris forces the soul out of them. We even hear the damage sound effect when they do it. Kris, even without the soul, is able to move and act on their own. Next, the new vessel. We create a character only for something to discard it. If the name of the creator is the same as its vessel, they will comment that they created themselves, or they are one and the same. The soul is lost and is searching for someone to use. As the only human in town, the soul used Kris against their will. We know that Kris barely has determination. Maybe their real soul is the heart-shaped outline that appears around the soul when grazing. They have a soul, but it's not filled with determination. Their soul could possibly be hollow, not having any of the traits we know. We know that Kris doesn't want to do much of anything, which is why the soul was able to control them as they were literally an empty vessel. We know that Kris practiced the occult along with one of their classmates, and possibly summoned the soul we have which the body possessed. Which possess their body. This could also explain why Kris is able to create fountains. The knife they use is a ritual knife that was infused by an unknown power which allows Kris's desires to mix with reality. Maybe this is the true essence of summoning the soul, allowing Kris's reality to mix with theirs. Although having this much power, Kris is slightly being overwhelmed by the soul, which is why sometimes they would remove it, showing that it's not completely in control of them. We even see Kris defying the soul's wish during chapter 2 where, when we wanted to know Azrael's room, Kris intentionally closed her eyes, showing acts of defiance against the soul's will. My next theory is the life they wanted. When Kris enters the dark world, they oddly mirror Azrael in the real world. Ralsei is commonly seen as Azrael's dark world version, but maybe we got it all wrong. Kris and Ralsei could possibly be the same person, but seen from a different angle. When Noelle and Birdley were sent to the dark world, they barely acknowledge Ralsei's presence. If they looked like Azrael, won't they ask Kris about him? But none of them somehow never bothered to talk about them, except for Susie during the Spamtom's quest where he teases Ralsei with their glasses. In the overworld, Kris is the shadow of their brother Azrael to the point that he is no one other than a creepy human kid. But in the dark world, he is the center of attention along with Susie. They are mostly the one that solves puzzles, lead the party, and make pointless decisions. Although sometimes, as their choices don't matter. When we reach chapter 2, we see a room made for them which oddly mirrors Azrael's side in the overworld, but the odd feature of the other half gone, making Kris the only child. When in the Queen's mansion, we get the chance to see Azrael's room, but Kris intentionally closes their eyes, preventing the soul from knowing more about their brother. Kris could possibly be trying to protect Azrael from the soul, making sure the soul knows nothing about their search history, or intentionally making it clear that Azrael is gone and doesn't want to remember them as the pain could be too much. Maybe this is the reason why Kris is basically reluctant to do anything, not really, doesn't much talk, doesn't much do anything, doesn't even want to go to school. Because they're nothing. They're basically blank. They're too boring to be anything. So they just don't have anything in them. My next theory is Kris's sacrifice. The game is said to only have one ending. I already have an idea on how the game ends, although it's not very cheerful. It ends with Kris falling and trapping themselves in the underground, just like how the humans fell and, well, not all of them made it out alive. The soul is too dangerous. It's causing Kris to do unspeakable acts towards his friends and family. During the Dark World, the soul forces Noelle to hurt others, making her stronger and forcing Kris on her. By forcing both Kris and the soul in a place where no one will find them, as well as a place where they can't hurt anyone anymore, the soul is voided of its power and influence. We see that Kris never needs to eat, drink, or use the bathroom when possessed by the soul. They oddly eat moss, but that can also be found in caves, so they have everything they need. By the end of the game, Kris is set free from the soul's influence, either by dying or by someone banishing the soul. Azrael might find Kris, on a patch of golden flowers and take them back to town. Just like in Undertale, but unlike in that alternate world, they both didn't die, and the soul is banished from their world. Next, the Snow Angel. Legend states that they needed to banish the angel's heaven. When we visit Noelle's father, there is a little doll with a halo that was made by Noelle and her sister. Kris and Azrael were said to make one, but they focus too much on the wings. When Noelle is in the Dark World, she looks angelic, with her maiden-like appearance and stance. She is even referenced to be pure when talking to one of Kris's classmates, and that Kris should keep her away from Susie. Noelle is certainly pure and is basically the damsel in distress since chapter 2. Oddly enough, she's the only one that notices something wrong with Kris, which could be the reason why she's the only one the soul is trying to influence the most. Unlike in chapter 1, Susie was influenced by the soul, basically ignoring its influence when she hears Kris's voice giving her directions during the prison breakout. But Noelle isn't strong enough to ignore its call, making it easy for it to control her. She was too dangerous to be left alone, which is why the soul is trying to take control of her, even making her use a spell she does not know. My next theory is Eyes Open. When defeating Jevil and Spamton, we receive a Shadow Crystal, which turns into a glass-like item in the Light World, or Overworld. It's possible that the glass we keep getting is the item that will help Kris see the world for what it is, removing the illusions. My theory is that collecting all the Shadow Crystals, we will receive a pair of glasses, which Azrael wants to use to show us the truth. I say this because during the part in Spamton's quest, we see Susie taking Ralsei's glasses and mocking him. This is an odd event, as it could be referencing to Kris doing the same thing to Azrael but broke his glasses, which they kept as a reminder. I say this because we receive flavor text when Kris holds the crystal up her eye. They see the Card Kingdom as toys on the floor, the Cyber World as a computer lab when used while in the Dark World, but when used in the Light World, Kris saw through their hand, which sometimes happens when wearing someone else's glasses because of the blurred vision. Or maybe it's the glasses itself. I used to wear someone else's glasses and it gave me a similar effect. Kris sees her mocking, looking at them, smiling and making a rude gesture. Although when they have the glass in their eye, they see Susie glaring at Kris, which is weird. Maybe this could suggest that Susie and Kris aren't friends at all, and we're seeing how Kris wants us to see them. Kris is creating the illusions we're seeing. Kris having friends, people getting together, but in reality, it's not real. We're just trying to make the most of it in Kris's eyes. But when we wear the glasses, we see the truth for what it is. Susie's annoyed, just wants to get this over with, and etc. done. Next, Azrael might not be the sweet boy we once know, but that's not really much of anything. Kris is forcing not to reveal anything about Azrael to the soul. This explains why Rousey has nothing about him other than the basics, which are also seen in Azrael's part of their room. First being the knockoff controller, he's basically created by something else, possibly from the fabric Sean or Shim was talking about, as he turns into nothing when defeated, or he could be the horns Toriel mentioned, as those were something dear to Kris. We never get to see the horns or find them in our inventory. Maybe Kris is hiding them. Since the horns were given to them as a child, the horns might be too small for them now. Next is the overachiever. We see that Rousey tries to make everything himself, as well as prepared everything for everyone, notably the tutorial dummy and rooms. Healer. He was always loving and caring towards Kris, always seeking their approval and comforting them during times of discomfort, especially during the Spamton fight and when Spamton suggests that Kris was a heart on a chain, something like that, being a puppet and wanting to be set free, the soul manipulating them, doing acts they would generally do not do. In the end, for me, Kris falls down a cliff where the soul leaves their body and looks for a new vessel. The soul is strong enough to influence monsters, as both Suthin and Rousey were granted their final power during final boss fights, but without a human to inhabit, the soul slowly loses its determination. Also, another theory of mine is during the next chapter, we'll have both Toriel and Undyne in it, as both will soon come to the house where the TV will be the final boss. The TV would possibly be Mike, a character we keep hearing about by Spamton, but we still don't know. Sorry if you're hearing a lot of background sound. It's New Year, January 1, so people are seeing exploding stuff outside. Next, let's analyze the shadow crystals. For me, these crystals are the hopes and dreams of people. We've already seen Jevil and Spamton, Neo. For me, Jevil is Kris's dream of wanting magic. Their search history is proof of this. We also know that monsters mostly can use magic. Kris, being a human, wanted to be able to use magic like everyone else. They even studied the occult to do so, which is something both humans do in real life to gain power from otherworldly beings. This could be the soul. Kris managed to summon the soul to us and gain its power, which is why they can do very odd things during the Jabal fight. The key items during Jabal are his knife and a tail, referencing to a mischievous knife user, possibly Kris. Javil's line about "I can do anything" could reference Kris's ability to act, which unlike spells can do various things. This could also be proven when we do in a battle actually. When we do act, unlike a spell that does one thing such as healing prayer or pacify, it only does one thing, but when we use act as Kris, it can do a variety of things. Even when in a Jabal fight, when we use act, we get pirouette. When Kris dances like a ballerina, and a variety of things could happen, such as a bird flying, nothing happening, Jevil or them getting stronger or weaker. Basically, it's chaotic magic. Next we have Spamton Neo. They are nobody's dream of fame confidence. The body itself was a reference to the lost dream. We all know that a certain scientist made this body, but since they never did, the dream was basically discarded. Or it's a drawing made in a computer, still remaining in its gallery. The drawing is possibly something left behind by someone hoping to become famous. Based on the art style, they could possibly be used the default paint option on the computer, as the way Spamtom Neo moves is if they are basically made from a low graphic animation, which we mostly see on the internet for beginners. I'm not trying to insult the developers, it just looks like something I think I made when I was young when I practiced animation. It was basically moving like, well, not exactly a puppet, more something else, but you get my idea that it was basically a picture moving, parts of a picture moving. Next, the soul's memories. I heard someone ask, why did the soul change during the Spamtom Neo boss fight? My theory is because it already had that ability to begin with. The soul that we are using is the same one from Undertale, but Deltarune is basically an alternate world where the monsters were never sent to the underground. Or they found a way to coexist with humans, but going back, the soul can use any of the soul colors it previously could change into, but only when it needs to. During the first part of the game, we tried to create a vessel, but we also don't know where the soul came from. We do know that it can only inhabit a human's body, with Kris being the only human. The soul can only use them. In the next chapter, chapter 3, we might use Kindness' shield to protect ourselves from attacks, as Undyne might make an appearance there. She is the only one able to grant the shield ability to the soul, just like in Undertale. Sean also said that they lost the Shadow Mantle. A mantle may also be used as a TV shield. This heat shield reflects and dissipates the heat radiating in and out of heat sources. Kind of specific, right? This theory kind of makes sense, as we are fighting a TV with Toriel, a user of fire magic, and Undyne, the one that granted us a shield in the first game. Next is Kris's two souls. During combat, we gain a new mechanic called bolt grazing, which shows a larger heart when attacks get too close to the soul. This could possibly be Kris's real soul, an empty, hollow soul where the vessel, or basically Kris, already had. They don't have determination, they don't have any trait like kindness, justice. So the soul put itself inside Kris's soul and gave them determination. Kris doesn't even have any determination based on how people comment about him. Not being talkative, not really visiting, not really wanting to do anything. That doesn't sound like someone with determination at all. My final theory is Kris's end. Just like in Undertale, where Azrael is seen at the beginning of the ruins alone when we're about to leave the underground with everyone, Kris will be in the deepest parts of the underground and will lock themselves there forever. Just like during the first part of the game where we enter, well, when we leave Ralsei's castle, we enter the world and lock the gates behind us. When Kris and Ralsei were imprisoned, we wore shackles and ate moss. We were always a prisoner, but now it's time for the soul to be imprisoned by us. Even if they take control of Kris, there was no escape for them now. Kris has no determination, and since Chapter 2 showed us that Kris's act abilities' uniqueness was nullified by Susie telling everyone that they can act on her own, stop making make Kris make all the decisions, so slowly but surely, Kris's uniqueness in both worlds are being negated by other people, making Kris both a nobody now, to the point that there's not a reason for him to exist anymore. True, they have friends, but based on how I'm seeing it, the ending could be Kris disappearing, just like how the humans in the first game find themselves in the mountains. It's still weird that humans can find themselves up there even though it's supposedly very far away and there's a legend about monsters. They're all children too, meaning that there's a town nearby, but it seems unlikely. We do see a castle at the end of Undertale, but maybe it's the reverse now. Well, those are my theories, guys. I hope you've enjoyed listening. I'm not really good at editing or animating just yet. I'm still not ready. I'm hoping to get an animation table or tablet to start making animations and showing you guys my stories. But for now, thanks for listening. I'm still not good at making theories. Still trying to talk more. My voice is not very good, but I'm trying. And again, thanks for listening, guys. You've been the best. Bye, Lunes.